What is your contribution toward fighting corruption? Hello guys, my name is Anthony and I am just here to have a little discussion about things that are affecting our society. And I am doing this video because recently I was added to a group that we call the Friends of Francis bin Kaifala. Francis bin Kaifala. Francis bin Kaifala is a very young guy from Sierra Leone. He's heading the anti-corruption world, the anti-corruption commission. Francis is the one heading that commission, which means he's somebody who don't tolerate corruption. Since 2018, when he was appointed, when he reached that positions, myself and many other people had admired him greatly because of his work and the endeavor he has been applying into the war against corruption. But many people in our society, especially in the Sierra Leonean society, when they talk about corruption, the first thing that pop up in our mind is the government. It's the government. We always believe that the government is the one who is corrupt. In the Bible, it is written, if you want to see the little speck in your companion's eyes, clean that coal that lies in your eyes first. If you want to see clearly, you need to wash your eyes. I'm saying this because our society was built upon a kind of system that we can no longer distinguish what really corruption is. So we will be practicing corruption, but yet we'll be pointing finger at someone else. Many people point finger at the government as the government workers and people in authorities as the corrupt people in the society, while they have forgotten their own work in that. And in my effort to elaborate on these and for me to show areas that we ourselves we are contributing collectively towards the corrupt nature of our society, I have to highlight something that Eleanor Roosevelt said about human rights in 1958. During the declaration of the Human Rights Commission, just like how bin Kaifala is fighting against corruption, Eleanor Roosevelt, who was heading this project to create the human right that many of us or the United Nations is enduring today, this is what she wrote. Where after all do the universal human rights began? In small places, close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any map of the world. Yet, they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the schools or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are places where every man, woman, and child seek equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning here, they have little meaning anywhere. Without concerned citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world. 1958, Eleanor Roosevelt wrote that. I'll take an example from myself, I was in primary school in the 1990s, and one of the things that I hate doing was spy. How many of us spies to succeed in our examination? That is a corrupt practice. You legally know, rightfully you know that mark doesn't belong to you, but you neglected your studies and you decided to embark on spying while the next person who burned the candle throughout the night, you get the better grade over him because you want to use the easy way, the easy go. It's corruption. It's part of corruption. Even when you steal from your mom, like things that doesn't belong to you, from your friends, you see your friend's toy on the ground, you steal it. You take what doesn't belong to you. It's part of corruption. Have we thought about that? You see in our school system, women, some of them, they don't want to study. The only thing they want to do is to wear nice clothes, go out there. We used to have this slogan in my own days, even though it's still happening today. They say, if I own my skirt, I own my mark. Teachers, they will leave when their students fail, instead of them encourage in them or discipline, especially the female student, they're going to sleep with them, and then they give them those big marks for them to go to the next class without the brain having anything. It's part of corruption. Somebody who is able to do this thing at a very low level, like what Edino said, the human rights declaration start from our homes, from our little activities, from these things that nobody pay attention to. Those are the areas that corruption begins. Imagine somebody who is used to doing petty stealing. They are always in the petty thefts, like whenever they see little things that doesn't belong to them, they take it. What do you expect from those people if you put them in the government position for them to control a larger sum of money? They will steal it. Corruption becomes from the home. When I was in class 4 going towards class 5, I start narrating my story from my own self, because they say we need to practice what we preach. This is the reason when I'm dealing with corruption, I start with my own examples. And I will encourage, I challenge everybody for you to genuinely use your own example. Like what I'm saying, they are not something that I'm just saying it. First of all, this book is called Wailing from the Bleeding Nations, the Battlefield Where the War is in Plan. It is a political memoir. If you see who is here is Charles Taylor, the man who started the Liberian Civil War, who at least we claim that he ended up implicating the Sierra Leonean Civil War that started in 1990. This is Charles Taylor. This book, it is the first book in a series of 3 books that I've written and I'm working on, because the last one is not yet out, about the Liberian and the Sierra Leonean Civil War. I'm a Liberian. I started my journey. This is the first phase of my journey, my coming into the Sierra Leonean society. How I get connected to the Sierra Leonean society, and how I have been observing things around our Sierra Leonean society over all these years. I'm talking about more than 30 years now that I first appear on the Sierra Leonean scene. More than 30 years now. I mean, those of you who know, the Sierra Leonean Civil War started on March 23rd, 1991. I was already in Sierra Leone when that war started. I came to Sierra Leone from Liberia in January 1991. I was a child. I was a sick child in a government hospital in Shemwema for over 9 months. All those times fighting in Daru here and there. It's 1991. All those things I was there. The overthrow of the NPRC when this come. I was in Sierra Leone before the first gun was fired. The first rebel gun was fired in that country. So I have been narrating. I have been keeping all these stories. The younger generation who is less than 30 years old, who don't have idea about these things, some of these things they see in our society, they think is new. But for me, everything is just what it used to be. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is new faces coming in, is the pouring new wine into old jar. That's what the corruption situation over there is. Go back to class 5. And first of all, I encourage, when we are dealing with corruption and we are dealing with the promotion of our Sierra Leonean society, embark first on education. Fight to educate yourself. And not just any kind of education. Educate yourself with the kind of education that have meaning to your society, like book like this that tells about the Liberian and the Sierra Leonean Civil War. How do we get to that point? Who we are responsible? Why are we fighting? Why is Africa backward? Why can we make decision on ourselves by ourselves? Wailing from the bleeding nations, the battlefield where the wars are implanted. Africa, Sierra Leone, Liberia have always been the battleground, and our people, our population, our young people, they are suffering, they are wailing, they are crying, they are dying. But this war that we are fighting, we are not planned on the African continent. Someone else or somewhere else is where this problem started. We have to look, and you cannot look without learning to read and write. Not only about learning, but learn something that pertains to your society, that bring meaningful explanation, historical account that give you insight about your society, that is beneficial to your society. This is the reason I encourage every Sierra Leonean, for you to have access to book like this. Read this kind of book. one of my projects or one of my desire that I'm fighting is how I actually get the right connection with people in our Sierra Leonean society, or like with government, people in the Sierra Leonean educational system, for a story like this for them to actually enter into our school system, into our curriculum. We learn about European, and we brag about learning about European history, that things that happened hundreds of years ago, we learned about them. We forgot to promote our own work, to promote our own culture. And any society that refuses to value itself, to value their own material, to value their own output and be proud of that, definitely those societies, they are deemed to die. Their demise is at hand. Is why we are like what we are. Ever since we got independent, what proof can we show that we are what we say we are? Are we really free? Is Sierra Leone really free from the independence in the 1960s? Are we really free? No. We are not free because we are not being able to promote our own work. Look into our school system. How many foreign books that are there? How many foreign books? It was now that the BO government trying to introduce something like they call civics educations about learning about the Sierra Leonean society. But I mean, how much do we know? When I ask people about the history of the Sierra Leonean Civil War, what brought us over there? If our population, if they really understand the history of the Sierra Leonean Civil War, I'm telling you, nobody will ever want to go and protest on the street. Because people have done that, they die. If you know that you are going out there and the likability for somebody to die, you will caution yourself and you will refuse to go. But many people, they have no idea because they have very little understanding about the Sierra Leonean society, about the war. So that's why they do what they gotta do. So we go back to class 4. Yes. When I was in class 4, there was a student teacher who popped up in the school to, every year in the HTC or like in the teaching college, they send students out into primary schools or whatsoever for them to go and teach practice. So in my class, I used to take first position. This is the reason why, for example, I admire people like Ben Kaifala. Ben Kaifala is not playing any magic over there. His education, his knowledge is because he was stewards, he fight, he was consistent, He was punctual to whatever he do, especially with his education. So that's why he got what he is. He deserved what he got. While other kids were playing a big style, putting their trousers down here and there, going to school, paying no study, they say, yeah, they want to be cool. Kaifara was studying. Like I wrote in one of my messages, I have a friend, one of my best friend, one of my best friend who is like a brother to me. He attended the same school with Kaifala. And he told me that Kaifala has been serious from day one. Even when Kaifala was in a refugee school in Guinea, he was serious. He was taking the first position, and that made him to get scholarship. If you are brilliant in school, or if you are brilliant in what you do, people like you. People like you. Your determination and hard work, coupled by the environment where you found yourself at that time, and luck, it make what Kaifala is today. When he went to Guinea and he was in those refugee schools because he was brilliant, not only because he was brilliant, but because he used to study for him to reach that level, there is nobody who is stupid. Nobody is stupid. People's knowledge might not be the same, but if you are determined, you can achieve it. And I spoke about this in one of my books, that I used to think I was brilliant when I was in school, like UBC primary school, like this one I'm telling you, where I'm talking about this class 4 incident. But when I went to CKC and I saw other men, other guys who were brilliant, and then that's when I know that the chief lion from another territory can become the gazelle that other chief lion will devour with no fight. So this student teacher, he came there, and I used to take first position in that school. And at the end of the day, that second time when the teacher was there and then these things happened, I lost my chance of taking the first position The second time, I look at the result and I reject the result. I say, no. This is not my result. I protest, I contest, I protest, I cry. I told the headmaster, I'm not going to take that result. And imagine in our school, especially at primary school, parents, they are happy because their children are being promoted or they pass. Everybody happy here and there. This guy they call Lansana Conte, his family were happy because he has got the first position. And then somebody from the class said, no, you don't deserve that result. It was like, wow, what's this Liberian boy saying? First of all, I'm a foreigner in the country here and there. It's like a privilege for them to give me a chance for me to be in their school. Now I'm challenging them. How much are we ready to put our own happiness on the line for us to uphold what is right? That's the question. How many of us are doing that? Ben Kaifala, he is not the only person. But he fighting corruption, and we can do the same, but we don't know, we might not know how to do it, or we have not been able to distinguish what is a corrupt practice. This is it. I challenged the school. I told the headmaster, I don't need a result. I told my teacher, I don't need a result. I told a student teacher, I said, you have cheated me. I need a retesting or reverse your grade and let's see how Lansana got the first position. I rejected and refused the result. And everybody tried to talk to me. I refused. My teacher talk. I refused. And it became like a commotion. Other parents, they started doing, well, what happened here and there, People want for them to really know now what's in there. And then the headmaster called this student teacher in his office. He asked, what really happened? Do you really think, Lansana, let me see your grade, let me see your marking sheet, let me see how you do the work, let me see what went there. And the guy ended up apologizing to me for cheating me in the school. The reason being is corruption. Like I told you, corruption is everywhere. Like what Eleanor Roosevelt said, human right is everywhere. So sometimes so small that we cannot see. This guy, when he came to do his student teaching, the reason why he used corrupt practice is this. He came to that village. Lansana, who was my opponent in the class, his parents lodged him in their house. And he discovered that he was teaching the class where his landlord's son was in. So, to make them feel happy, as a good gesture of a job well done, he decided to steal my grade and pass it on to Lansana. But he plays with the wrong person, and I disgrace him. And that's how it seems to be. When you spy in class for you to get that big grade, you are corrupt. When you steal from your mom or from your friends, you take things which doesn't belong to you. Petty thieves is part of corruption. What is the definition of corruption in general? Let me go to this point. Corruption is a form of dishonesty or a criminal offense which is undertaken by a person or an organization which is entrusted in a position of authority in order to acquire illicit benefit or abuse power for one's personal gain. Corruption may involve many activities such as bribery, influence peddling, and the embezzlement, and it may also involve practices which are legal in many countries. Yes. You remember that thing what they call mas. Salomon, you remember that thing what they call mas? Mas na corruption. You remember that statement when they can say who said the entire cow that they eat? Na corruption. How many people then they do mas na our country? How many people then they eat and then they eat as the cow when they don't tie in that place they? When they think for say all that thing in a part of corruption. Why you even lie, you cheat na your relationship na part of corruption because na part of dishonesty. Any dishonest practice is part of corruption. But like this definition, this is Wikipedia definition where say things, what would they do where it seems to be legal? In many countries, there are still corruption. And from a very early age, I have tried my best to identify some of these things that I know they are corrupt practices. And in my adult life, some people then can always say, I'm too strict. Yes, I need to be strict. Because if you are not strict, being strict is being observant, taking key note of everything, thinking about your action even before you implement it, before you take action on anything you think about it. Those are things that involve strictness. Strictness not just about, because everybody wants forgetting so easy, you know. But if we allow the world to go that so easy, things doesn't work the way it should be. Now for that, many people corrupt, then they don't know, say they're corrupt. People then they point finger per APC, say the APC organization corrupt here and there. I mean, imagine. Not to the APC they in power now. I they tell you about result, you understand? Result about those things, my meal day, where then they cheat me here and there, people then they spy. But think about the way then they mark with result. It don't reach a year, everybody fail. Now that not Sierra Leone, like either WAS or MPSE or Beke. Are you really convinced that everybody fails? That nobody not able to do anything? Or the people that whether they mark that result because they don't leak then leaks the mark, the answer to the picking then. So everybody gets a lot of big marks that they don't deserve. Corruption. Think about that. Those are civil servants, they are not government workers. So why do we focus so much on the government workers? Many of these people who are government workers, they were once civil servants, they were once children like us. Do you think these people, if they should have been practicing something genuinely, they were honest, they have that moral value about themselves, and they were people who were doing the right thing, do you think when they go to the government, they won't do that? Why do you think Francis Kaifala, he's been this way? It's because people that were Sabi Francis, why been a grow there, no say he was strict. He was very much strict. So he lived by the law, and when he have the opportunity for him to be in position, he practiced the law. He doesn't tolerate mess. And the only thing now they want make the difference between Kaifala Smart, Kaifala Smart, yes, Kaifala, he's also Kaifala Smart, you know, because he's already smart. Perhaps he's gonna be. He even seems to look like Kaifala Smart, you know. He might likely one day become our next Kaifala Smart. So that is it. So, yes, only 25th. This is very serious. On the 25th of July, you know, say the MPSC result, they don't come on. It don't come on also. Beginning happy, beginning they cry, other people they do. At the time when I say corruption, it involved inside that marking of the result. Corruption, baby. I know one lady, one Peking, what seat class, for me I go from one. Throughout, it then a Catholic school. Now that Lunge area there. It did it. Then one Catholic school in that Lunge area there. And what happened? You know, Catholic, they are religious people. When they send them Peking there, now the examination, then leave them in the hands of the grades, and then brilliant. Waiting you don't mark, now you they get. Catholic schools, or many of them Catholic schools, where they get them father them before them. They know they send and teacher them for me and go influence exam, for me and go influence result. Many schools in Sierra Leone, they do that. When I know of that, not so, now corruption. When you they send you picking there, you send money behind there, or when they invigilator, when they go invigilate, when they pay people there for many help when picking them for pass, by giving them the answer. Now corruption. Those are not government workers. They are civil servants. They are corrupt. And they start those corruption because they themselves, before they reach that level, they be done the spy, so they know for saying an easy thing for do. Like what we say now, yeah, in the definition of corruption, certain things that people do that they are not conscious of it, they think is legal, is corruption. This lady, small picking so, smart girl, in whole family believe for say, I can forget one of the best results in that school day, It even challenge in big sister say it go pass them because in sister been get over 300. I think 320 were in the sitting exam. And in sister self, it been get her confident for say in small sister smart and the way wait here they see the begin they do, they expect for say in for them, na in go get the best grade finally. Because na in then last dinner. And when they seek them mock final, you know, like the mock examination going towards the girl, now they take the first position in class. The mock, they get nothing below 90s. Inside or in quantitatives, English, math, blah, 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 here and there. I mean, 190. The least one we get, I think about 75 or something like that. Now, one of them, one subject I get. And guess what? In result, you get 357, 58, and 70 in subject. Imagine. How on earth? Let's just be honest here, okay? Let's be honest here. The person who mark that picking in result, why it again 3 distinguished 57 per subject and why that picking be done they get like 100. Why? Why that for happen? There is a reason for this. One, a neglect the work, in read the work for me to see the answer what the picking put there. And she's a very confident girl that sometimes people then go say a wide. Confidence in a sense, she's outspoken. If not being shy, somebody go say it will get exam fright, you know. But not to them kind of people today. She's outspoken, very well connected and outspoken, somebody that I'm telling about. It get 357 or 158 and the other one it get 70. Per marks, when I being 100, even in mock, I didn't think day. But that person who have been in mark, either they don't take the government money for many mark, they don't mark on time, late, what they know for say tomorrow, then for present the paper, then just give 57 because they know say nobody not going for watch that thing again. Now corruption. Many people then when they get good grades in Sierra Leone, they don't deserve them. Many people they won't forget good grades, then they lost. This is one thing we have to know. I don't see, like for example, the year where I sit, one picking, one lady, the picking then I add stream, and then I add stream, the result where come for her, now science. But because one for go sit exam again for me, I go say, oh no, this is not to me result, not to them subject. Then she accepted to become a science student when she was in the art stream. Where you don't know nothing about chemistry, you don't know nothing about physics, you don't know nothing. I even get an ID card, like a voter ID card in Sierra Leone, and sometimes corruption, like how they tell you, sometimes that things, what would they do unconsciously? What I mean, they produce some of them, then ID, not to this election now, but the gun election, what I mean, they produce some of them ID card then. And they see woman in face, they appear per man in name. Why we not they think about the entire? You see, then little things that they bring dishonor now the society. Francis, it happened to stay at the top over there for him to fight from the top position. It is our collective responsibility for us to fight in the bottom. Teach your children that spying is not a thing of becoming successful. It will never take them anywhere. It will end up teaching them to become corrupt like these politicians we are talking about. Tell your children that lying is not things that need to be done. Lying is a means of dishonest behavior and it can lead to dishonesty. And we talk about dishonesty, trying to acquire influence and bribery. They are part of corruption. How many people then in a position today in our society, civil servant, whatever government, why they don't deserve those positions? When would I sabi you? Would I know you? When they make all these things, they are corrupt practices. Corruption is everywhere in our society. It is not with the APC alone. It is not with the SLPP alone. It is not with any other political party alone. It is embedded within our society. Like I've been talking in one of my books, when I describe somewhere, I said, if corruption had been like the cotton tree, we don't die in Africa. In Africa, the root was embedded, is planted. The tap root will go deep down into the soil. Now inside Sierra Leone, I don't left nobody out. I don't left nobody out. Every politicians, I don't left nobody out. Because since I've been growing up in that society, I have seen corruption. Even think about people that when they travel abroad, they use corrupt practices for when they travel abroad. People then they change their name, then they fake their ID, then they travel under someone else's name, then they now other people in the country illegally. All these things, they are corruption. Can you think about that? Do you see how deep corruption seems to be within our midst? So, when they talk about corruption, forget about the politician. Think about yourself. Look in that mirror and see yourself. Look in the mirror and see yourself. See yourself. You are there. You are standing right there as a corrupt individual. But unfortunately, some of the corrupt practices have been, then say, when you tell the lie over and over, it ends up becoming a truth. So sometimes, we don't do these things so much that we don't even know how to differentiate our ethics, behavior, and practices that will be considered corrupt. This is it. My advice to us is to rethink what we really call corruption. And finally, I'm going to last with a piece of advice that I derived from the Human Rights Declaration. I say, where, after all, do corruption began? In small places, close to home, so close and so small that cannot be understood by many people in our society. They cannot be talked about, and they cannot be seen on any map of the world. Corruption are embedded into the world and life of the individual person. They are part of the neighborhood where he or she lives, the school or college he or she attend, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Corruption is there. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child start to practice corruption. And in the end, they will no longer be able to distinguish between what are corrupt practices versus ethical or moral behavior, unless corruption is addressed and eradicated in these places by each and every one collectively. Our fight against corruption will continue to be meaningless without every conscious citizen action to uphold the fight against corruption from the grassroots close to their homes. We shall labor in vain in ending corruption across the nation or the world at large. Thank you very much. My name is Anthony Dawe. I am the writer of Wailing from the Bleeding Nations, the battlefield where the war is a plan, which is a story that helps us to fight against injustice, corruption, and war, that help to teach the African about being a patriotic African, that teaches us that we need to unite ourselves, that give us tips about how we can identify problems within our society and how we'll be able to fight against those things that uphold, things that band us together for good, things that are going to bring the African image to its glory. Those are the kind of things that I talk about. The book is a series. The first and the second, they are already out on Amazon, and I'm working on the third. And I encourage everybody, those of you who are knowledgeable, who believe, who are academicians, who knows you need collaboration for us to work on things, especially fighting, because I take it very serious about, like when things like this, because they are part of our legacy. I call this work my legacy project. It is things tomorrow, if I am gone, at least I have something, I have left behind something that might educate people for them to see the world from my viewpoint. How far are we doing? What is your contribution toward fighting corruption? That's my last question. Bye-bye.